Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the conversation series. I am thrilled today to have Amanda Marcovitch here with me. She is the COO of Youshaei Studios. She has been named one of Business Insider's top rising stars in talent management. I'm so excited to have her here with me so we can jump into her role as COO, especially as in the creator world. So, Amanda, just thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I want to first jump into I love starting and beginning stories and just how you got involved with business. Were you always in love with business?
I have a business degree. Not that that means anything today, but I've been in real estate for 10 years, running operations for like for Fortune 500 companies. I worked at
Yeah.
CBRE and Cushman and JLL. And then I moved into real estate tech where I worked for Divvy Homes, which was a well-funded startup. At the time, I think it was valued at 150 million, where I led operations and really got into the tech side of it. And all these skills, operations, I was
Yeah.
overseeing, like I managed the Yelp building and the Transamerica Pyramid and hospitals and big industrial
Yeah.
portfolios. So I was really used to managing big teams of vendors and budgets. And I never thought, the creative world and operations and corporate world would be so related, but
Yeah.
all my skills are definitely really applicable in the role I'm in.
Very nice. And then what was the leap going from, working in more of the corporate side of the world to then saying, okay, I'm going to go to the creator side. I'm going to go start working over here.
It wasn't really I didn't think through this. I just jumped in out of
Love
necessity,
it.
to be honest. John always wanted to do this, and COVID hit and we had moved to Palm Springs. I invested in a property there that was helping fund us while we first started off, and we were kind of working part-time and juggling, trying to make it all work. And initially, he had hired a more industry manager. But I quickly realized, I could do better and we can keep up money. So that's kind of what happened.
I love that. I love the confidence there. Youshaei Studios has kind of just grown so much year after year. What have you helped do on the operational side that has continued its growth?
Yeah, if you want to start with management, right? Obviously, managers are great. It's a relationship based business. But me being on the inside and being married to John, what happens is, right, we have a video. There's sometimes we're doing podcasts, it's tied to a big release, right? We just did Ryan's World interview. And it was tied to the release of a movie, right? So we have 5 days to get it out. And this happens all the time. We film, we have 4 days to get it out, right? So every time we have a brand deal, I can do a 2-day turnaround, or I'm making 500 phone calls or doing cold outreach or going to meetings. And of course, other people could do this, but I don't think the motive isn't there, right?
Right.
And so, I've closed brand deals within 2 days, and in 3 years, I've never not got a sponsored video
Okay.
ever. And I think, I'm not, I'm just proud
I
of that in general. I think there's a
love
lot of really big influencers that are managed by amazing agencies, but half of their videos aren't sponsored just because that's how it goes, or that they're not going to, work around the clock till 3 in the morning until it happens, or juggle. Like sometimes I'll take a brand off a different video and make sure it goes on this one. I'm always juggling, and mixing things up, or,
it.
that's one way I think our revenue and our costs are covered. The second way is just in terms of our editors. Before I was a bit more hands off and just getting
Yeah.
started. I kind of started part-time, and now I work like 78 hours a week. But John was just hiring editors or hiring people he
Yeah.
knew, or refer, great people. But a lot of them were local or really expensive because we're in LA or getting used to pricing. And a skill I learned from property management is I bid out everything. I get 10 bids.
Yeah.
I bid around the world, so we get coverage, maybe overnight or in the UK or in Asia or in South America. So right now we have our editing done is I have specialists for intros, because those are much more expensive, but they're much more extensive and I need a much higher editing skill. Then we have a story editor. That can be in the US, or sometimes higher in Canada because it's PST time zone, but a bit lower on the exchange rate.
Okay.
And then I also hire, graphics designers, all there I don't need like someone specializing in English because these are graphics. So I've really segmented out everything and I bid everything out. And I've lowered our cost by 50% and increased our speed twice. And so I think the biggest part, I can't do what he does. He's an expert, like at creative, and I don't even know how he does what he does. But the finances have to work, and they weren't working before.
That's incredible that you were able to do that. I think we always talk about, and businesses talk about being more efficient, but sometimes it is harder to try to be more efficient than it is to actually like the different strategies you have in place. That's incredible because I don't think a lot of people think about all those different things.
Yeah, and also people are people, right? They get sick or they have other priorities, and unless you're paying them top dollar, I basically think of it like a bench in basketball, right? I try to have 5 or 6 options at all times.
Yep.
Someone doesn't finish, or so I always have something else to pull from, or we have 3 videos in one week. We used to take like 2 months to do a video. Now, now we're turning them around every week,
Yeah.
or they're 2-hour interviews, and the production quality is like
Yeah.
it's
Being
just
able to tap somebody in really quickly in case anything happens.
yeah. So I'm recruiting like every week, always. Like I never stop because I always want another freelancer in my back pocket that I can
Yep.
call up.
Now, how would you describe the role of a COO in in a content and a creator driven business compared to a traditional company like the ones you were working with beforehand?
I really think of it similar to a startup, right? I mean, my creative chops, I'm starting to develop them just by being in the space, but I definitely did not have them before. But it's like, with a corporation, the problem was, these big companies, it's they give you a playbook. Here are the rules. This is where you are in the hierarchy.
Like,
I want to hear your opinion, but I don't really want to give you the power to implement anything. And if you have something valid to say, it'll go through 10 steps of red tape before anything will happen. Right. So now I just try things. That's why things happen so fast because you're on a, we're a bootstrap business,
yes,
and I just make calls and I try to, I just figure it out. And I don't know if that's different than like a non-creative
totally.
startup in my role in particular.
Yeah.
But it's much more sensitive. I think that's, I'm dealing with people, I'm interviewing them, we're telling them their stories, and people are more invested in the work and they're more excited. So I think that's a big difference.
Yeah.
But overall, it's just like everything's on your shoulders, but at the same time, you get to make those decisions
Yeah.
without just because you decide to.
I
Mhm.
like the analogy you used though between a true traditional corporation compared to
Yeah.
a startup. I've been lucky enough that I've worked in both, so I've gotten to see both sides of the
Yeah.
house. And I'm in startup world right now, and I'm like, we can try and like do something, and it changes the next day. And that's what
Yeah.
I like about the creator world. Like, if a video doesn't produce the way you think it's going to produce, like that's changeable. That is totally changeable. And so I feel like it's more of you're on your toes, you're a little bit more agile, you're moving around more in the creator world to just try to succeed and stick yourself out there more so people can see you.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's harder is, of course, like a startup is a grind, but just given we're working with like other people's release dates all the time, and we're
Yes.
getting interviews and we have 5-day turnarounds or sometimes even shorter,
Yeah.
there's just, I mean, I guess I was never a COO at a startup, so I don't know how hard they work. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
really hard, but the vibe I got was they still got to like
Yes.
go home and go to bed.
Yes.
We're like doing all-nighters like on the regular, and I hope that gets easier. But it's just the turnaround times are so tight
It
that
is crazy. I get a lot of people, I mean, we see it in the world of podcasting, like there are people who, do batch recordings and they'll turn things out like months afterwards. I'm a person where I'm like, I look at you, Amanda, and be like, your episode's gonna be out in 3 weeks. Like it is one of those where I'm like, it is so quick sometimes just because for me personally, I love like if you were to tell me something that's coming up, I want to make sure that is actually relevant to what the listeners are going to hear and that maybe that thing is going to be out of that time. Like I sometimes batch recording works and sometimes depending on the podcaster, like I'm like I like the turnarounds to be able to get it out to the world when it's a relevant conversation.
Yeah, or just the space, like creative work is sometimes you just need depth of research, or when you're not like so crammed. And
Yeah,
a lot of our shoots also, just think of like logistics, right? Like a lot of creators have studios in LA, or that, and they expect creators to come to them, and then the setup is all there, and that's great. But some of our competitors are paying 20,000 a month or more. And then they're also limited to, are the creators going to come? Because we're trying to land talent, some of the biggest stars in the world.
yeah,
And so at least half our shoots are remote. And that means I have to find a remote, first I have to find a venue that's big
yeah,
enough, and finding a huge, productions like studio.
yes.
Then then the setup for the interviews, sometimes we're doing 2 interviews, and I need 2 camera crews. And then I have to vet them, because a lot of them, I try to, first we were flying out our teams, but it doesn't always make sense. So now I've learned how to vet much better what the type of camera equipment they're using, what their teams, are compromised of, and what kind of lighting they use. So I've learned a lot of the equipment and vetting. And then, the talent will say, okay, I'll give you an hour with 24 hours notice. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's typically, what we
Thinking
have to
on the
work with,
feet. Yeah,
to jump and
yeah.
run. Yeah.
Yeah, thinking
That's it.
on your feet, definitely. It is, it like we were talking about, like it is fast and you just have to be able to try to put
Yeah.
your belt on and get ready to go.
And it's scary because you got one shot, right? They're giving you an hour. They're not going to redo it. They're not going to
Yeah.
give you no time. That's it.
Yeah, especially like you were just saying, the guests that you guys are having to, like Logan Paul, you guys had Dude Perfect, like some of these people, like like you said, you've got one shot to be able to do this.
Yeah, yeah. Or like, just a funny story. Like, we interviewed Dude Perfect in Arkansas, and I was trying to find a set and a videography team in Arkansas. And the caliber we're looking for is really high. Like, I look at 1,000 applicants to pick one. And we didn't know, it's like 11 o'clock at night. Like, it was just, anyways, we just I had to, pay multiple people to not use them, like, because we didn't know. And
Yeah,
what happens when you just don't know
yeah,
who you're,
totally.
if they're like, what the scenario is or where you are. I'm getting better, but it's definitely a learning curve.
When you think of Arkansas, you're not thinking of too many places that have a great studio space for you
Yeah,
guys.
I mean, there are some amazing ones, of course, but it's just, you have to find them, and like, I don't know anybody there. And yeah, yeah. So, and now, speaking of operations, right now I have a list. I have, like, here's my vetting system, like, here's what I'm looking for. And that's definitely, our operations on that have gotten stronger too.
In your opinion, why is the role for a creative success having a COO so important, so vital?
Because I think if you look at some of the biggest creators, and without like naming names, we talked to a lot of big creators, they're
Yeah.
huge channels, and they're like going bankrupt.
Yeah.
Or their spend is so high, or they're inefficient, or they're just wasting tons of money, right? Like, I mean, creators are not just I think creative and operations are often, like, some people could be both, but they're often pulling at each other, because you could never be the most operationally run by being the
Yeah.
most creative, right?
Yep.
Like, when I work with John, he's trying to make the best video, and I'm trying to get him to bring it 10% worse to save 50% of the budget, right? It's like, because he wants to spend like double to make it this much better, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can never focus on like the optimizing of both those things, and like at the same time, I think. So having a push and pull,
Yes.
it's a good system.
And his videos are and his interviews are so high quality. I can definitely see where you're like, please just help me just a little bit. Just try to.
He's gotten much better. He's got like so much better than like when he first started out. Oh my God, we would have been like beyond bankrupt now. But no, I'm joking. No, he's good now.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. For you, what is the most rewarding aspect of being a creator COO?
Really just coming from like my background, I would have never even done this, if it all didn't happen this way.
Yeah.
And just seeing the impact I'm making, and that it's working, and our success is doubling year after year. And it's really amazing, yeah, that all these changes are really making our business run incredibly smoothly. And I'm really excited for this year and next year, and our partnerships are just keep getting better and better. We're finding great partners to work with. And I mean, right now, right, I have more brand partners than my biggest problem is I can't deliver the inventory fast enough.
Yeah.
And that's just an amazing problem to have. I mean,
It's a great problem to
yes,
have.
yeah,
When the demand is there, that is always a great problem to have, but I do understand the added pressure there to try to deliver.
yeah. Or just that's why I'm always hiring, and we're trying. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I do want to hop real quick to VidCon. I
yeah,
love your LinkedIn post that you did because I thought it was so vulnerable that you spoke about, you would have never have done that had John not helped influence you to do that, which I think is crazy because you have such an incredible background and everything you've done is amazing. But just how did it feel to get up there and speak at VidCon? And what was the overall impression afterwards
yeah.
after you did
It
it?
was amazing. Yeah, I would have never done that in a million years. Like,
Really?
he didn't. No, because I never. I guess I'm not a stage like I'm not like he speaks
Yeah.
all over the place. He's camera facing. I'm always like sitting on my desk looking at numbers. And also I just thought like, why would anybody want to hear from me? I don't know. That was just
Yeah.
my like, and also I think part of it, it's a really male dominated industry. A lot of people have been in it in a long time.
Yeah.
I think there's an insecurity about like, doing this as his wife.
Yeah.
Just, to be totally
To-
honest, but it was the most incredible thing because standing up there, I felt so validated. Just like a lot of people told me it was the best keynote they heard. Because there's a lot of great speakers, obviously, but I'm giving like practical, this is exactly how I
Yeah.
run this thing. And I think a lot of the other keynotes are get people excited or a more big picture while I'm going into like the nitty-gritty. I was telling people how I like stalk people on LinkedIn and then, they're like, oh my God, I do that too. That's not weird. Like, yes, yes, I look up who the partnerships managers are and I send them cold emails and I do it again and again and again and again.
Love it.
So, and just, no one else, I don't think a lot of people are saying stuff like that
Yeah.
on stage.
I love it. You're like, oh my God, I feel seen. It kind of, I love it.
So just the
Because
feedback was like,
yeah,
yeah, pretty amazing.
I love that. And now you're getting ready. We were talking about it beforehand. You're speaking at Vid Summit. Are you
Yeah.
excited? Do you have the same feelings going into this, or you feel like, all right, I've got one underneath the belt. I can go kind of just
Not as bad, not a little bit, obviously. But now that I've done it once, and I'm getting some tweaks. I'm gonna make it a little better.
nice.
So yeah, every time you get better, one of the reasons I love to do podcasts is just, exercising this muscle of,
Yeah.
talking to people and putting yourself out there. And if, I hope more people who are shy, get themselves out there because there's a lot of people who just, there's so much noise out there. A lot of people have the opposite problem where they never, they don't have that much to say and they're so
Yes.
loud.
There is a very interesting line of people who are speakers of like they can get up there and totally capture the audience and the stage and don't have a fear at all about speaking in front of people. And then you have people who are like, I would rather jump off a building than speak
Yeah.
in front of a room of people. And it's so funny that you rarely hear the people who kind of are in that very sweet middle of like, I'll do it, but like I don't feel like I'm the best person to speak up there. Um, I've loved public speaking, but I am one of those people where I'm like I black out. I'm like I'll get off stage, I'll be like, how'd that go? Did it go good? Because I don't remember a single thing that I said while I was up there.
Yeah, or like I mean, when I was younger, I could not get through a public speak. She's
Yeah.
like at all. Like in high school, I think I failed public speaking.
Yes.
No, but now I feel pretty good, and you just keep getting better. And when you prepare you have a great deck, which goes a long way.
Yes. I want to hop to brand sponsorships because we've talked a lot about this. You were just talking about, cold emailing and everything. You've secured some pretty big brand sponsorships and partnerships with companies like Google and Microsoft. What are some of your top tips for creators when you're looking to kind of land these bigger brand deals that are just like Google and Microsoft seems so daunting?
I mean, one thing is right, brands obviously they want to work with people who are professional,
Right.
and in the creator space, that's all across the spectrum because there's
Yep.
so many creators of different experience levels. And so one approach is obviously just people don't realize how many cold emails I send. I
How
probably spend
many? I have to ask how
probably
many.
about 500 every week. But I've developed systems and I've automated it to some extent to make it easier on myself. And also just that it has to be automated while meaning a really personal pitch, right? Because I get a lot of emails. Also, people want to work with us. And if I feel like it's some automated weird thing, I don't even respond. So one tactic is if you're just starting out, right? I'll say like a competitor, I'll look at, hey, I saw you worked with Ali Abdel. This was a great integration. My channel's similar. Here's why. Here are my analytics. I think it could deliver in the same way, in the same message.
Yep.
So, using and knowing like someone who does campaigns in your existing niche, that's a lot more effective. Or you ask questions about what's their budget next quarter, or just kind of keeping tabs on, building a CRM system and having multiple contacts and knowing a bit about their campaigns or what's coming up next. And I think people are scared in terms of pricing.
Okay.
That's like a big one, like how do you price yourself, right?
Yes.
And if you don't want to lowball yourself,
Yeah.
and if you start too high, you're gonna freak out. Brands are gonna be
Yeah.
like, well, right. And so I think I close a lot of deals because I'm flexible in my pricing.
Okay.
So I want to find if I want to work with a brand, I want to find a way to do it. Now I can't give them some of our biggest productions cost a fortune. I can't do that, but I have different tiers, right? So we have second spots that are integrations that go in the second half of the video. I have shorts. I have a newsletter. So depending on what your budget is, I'm going to find out what your budget is, and then I'm going to say, here's the media I can offer you. Instead of saying, here's my exclusive rate of, tens of thousands, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then it's just a no, the conversation over. If
Yeah.
it's a brand that has a really small budget, hey, I'll give you a newsletter spot. Maybe it's a LinkedIn post. Maybe I also try, it's hard to close the contracts. Some of them are like 20 pages long, and I'm a part-time lawyer now. So I sit there redlining and arguing like back and forth. It takes 3 months sometimes because some of the language is really,
Yes.
scary
Yeah.
that it's to be negotiated. So, I give a discount to also bulk things together because it could take 3 months of my time. And so if I get 4, 5, 10 videos, whatever it is, that's the same amount of my time and I'm done.
Yep.
And so even though I'm charging less and I'm incentivizing that with a lower rate, that work is done and I'm set. And that way also we get a video, hey, you have 2 days to deliver. Guess what? Brand deal, here we go.
Yeah. Yep.
So in the contract, sometimes if I have a longer term deal, I'll say we're using the same integration.
Yep.
And that way we could use your brand deal within 2 days notice and everything's approved or it's ready to go.
I love
Yeah.
what you said about pricing though, because I think it is such a funny conversation that everybody has of like, oh my God, I hate talking about money, one, but two, you said it perfectly, like you don't want to lowball yourself, but at the same time, you don't want to go and be so exponentially expensive that people are like, no, we are not even considering that because of how high that is. It is such a funny place to try to figure out like what is the best way to price yourself.
And it is interesting too, because I don't even know I just know I base our pricing. Like I know what our costs are. I know what my profit margin has to be like to just make it work. But what brands pay tends to be all over the place. And it's hard. I think it just depends on the brand perception or what their budgets are. It's hard, like, because for the same content, I'm getting offers all across the spectrum. There's like no consistency to it.
Yep.
So I just focus on more what I need. And then I find, yeah. And then if I know what your budget is, I'll find out what I can give you that works. And if it doesn't work, well, but usually I'll find something.
It is I've done a lot of research in terms of the social media management side. I'm like for the what falls under my I have a tiered system as well. So what falls under all my categories, like is this too high? Like I'm looking at other people's and sometimes I'm looking at people's, I'm like, wow, you are charging that much, that high amount of dollars for these things that are falling as my tier 3 at this price. Like it's crazy to see a comparison sometimes of some of these.
Yeah, for sure. But I think you have to notice too, like are they getting that rate all the time, because we have sometimes you get a high bidder, sometimes,
Yes.
it's really just doesn't mean they're getting that
Yes,
regularly.
absolutely. In your experience, if from seeing both the corporate side of things and then from this creator side, What have you seen as like some of the biggest mistakes that creators make when approaching brand partnerships and seeing you were talking about like you are redlining contracts and those things. Like, what are some of the big mistakes you're seeing creators make?
Yeah, I mean, they're just signing these things, and some of this language, like you could be screwed for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest one is like usage, name, and likeness.
Okay.
Right? You could sign away their right to blast you. You're a young creator.
Yeah.
You're just starting out. You're selling I don't know, for something for $1,000, let's say, and then you get 2 million subscribers, and they could blast your face on their webpage for
Wow.
forever,
Yeah.
forever, because you were, I don't know, young in your 20s and you didn't read an agreement that they own your face for life.
Yes.
So that's just not worth it.
Yeah.
That's just,
Yeah.
and that's in 90% of agreements, 90%.
Okay.
The other thing that gets really messy, this is not so much about protection, but just it's about, we have to run efficiently. And when things are vague, that could rack you up tons of dollars and time. And so in terms of an editing process, right, I give script written revisions, and then
Okay.
I get approval. So I'm not doing any reshoots, right? So before I got more savvy to this, they're like, do it again, no, do it again, no, change this, no, do it again, no, change this, no, edit this again, right? Every edit, it's another whatever, $1,000, whatever it is.
Yes.
10 times, 20 times, one time, 77 times. I'm not even joking. And I mean, you're stuck because what are you gonna, you
Yeah.
have this agreement, it says they have the right to approve. Well, they didn't approve it yet. Okay. I mean, you could push back but it gets messy, right?
Yeah.
I have everything very specified. You get 2 revisions of the script on the written content only. Once it's approved, we will film. We are doing no research, and then you get one graphic edit at the end.
Okay.
Right. So given that I add that to every agreement because it's not already in there. And then it's just, I mean, brands push back. I shove the contract. Here you go. You sign this. This is what we agreed
Yeah.
to. And sometimes I'll do more. I'm not saying I only want brands to be happy,
Yeah.
but then I'm coming from, oh, I did you a favor. You're not holding it over my head. I'm going out of my way to accommodate you.
Yep.
So, things that, that's a big one. And then just, I'm trying to like, well, I mean, I have a whole presentation on like
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other ones. I mean, that's the biggest one.
Yeah.
There's also whitelisting is like, when you're paid a media behind it, which is fine, but you want to, anything that's used, I do give usage, but anything that's, one is like not giving it at all if it's not worth it. And if it is, that's fine. We want to partner with brands we believe in, that we use. We pay the usage is great. It's a win-win for us and the brand. But I give time, a timeline, like a
Okay.
time cap.
I love that you're really specific about the revisions because I think, like you were saying, like they will come back to you and it's the smallest amount of tweaks that they want to make, and it can hold you up for an exponential amount of time where it's just like this content isn't even relevant anymore to this partnership. But I love that you're super specific about it because it makes it so the content is timely and you're getting things out and it doesn't
It'll just drive you crazy.
drive you absolutely nuts. Yes.
Or another one is like, can they make modifications of your content, right? It hasn't happened yet, but you think of reality TV, are they going to like string a sentence together that doesn't say anything that John said?
Yeah.
And then they have the right to make derivative works of that. No.
Yeah.
The answer is no.
Totally.
So I'm just like the compliance police thinking what could go wrong, and and no.
You got many hats that you're wearing constantly, and that's just one of them.
Yeah. So there's a lot of or here's another one is like the right to cancel when they want. Like, no, that's in a lot of contracts. Hey, we can cancel whenever we feel like it for any reason.
Wow.
So there's all kinds of things. Or they can ask you to remove it. I've seen, I think these legal teams are just trying to protect the brand, and some of them don't realize the implications of the platforms they're dealing with. Like I've seen contracts where they say we have the right to ask you to remove the video. No, we'll take out your integration if you want. That's
Yeah.
fine. I'm not removing a video that we worked 3 months on ever, unless we want to do that. Another one, maybe you want a minimum keeping the integration for a specific amount of time, so you don't have to, if you're a young creator and you're just starting out, you sell an integration, a
Yeah.
year is a reasonable amount of time. I mean, or maybe it's, you're just starting and you want to give even more value, but it's just something to be aware of,
Yeah.
that just time limits or things to keep things in check where you're not giving away things forever with no say. And
Yeah. I have actually had the experience of somebody coming and asking me if I would um take down their episode, and I'm like, kindly no. I'm
yeah,
like, I understand, and I am totally like willing to help you in a bunch of different ways to try to like minimize this, but I'm like, I edited this episode. We did a bunch of promos with this. Like, this has been up for a considerable amount of
yeah.
time. I'm like, I'm like, I don't see why it would now need to be taken down, but it is crazy that people sometimes don't think about the work that had to go in it outside of the filming it.
I have a question. Do you have the right? I guess it's different. It's
Yes,
Zoom and it's, but my question for you is, do you have the right to keep it up or do they?
I do.
You
I have the
do.
right to keep it up. Yeah.
That's good. I mean, I'm like when we would do our interviews, right?
Totally.
I'm getting waivers. I've added language to say I have the right to dub their voice, right? Because
Oh,
um
interesting.
right, because if you have a clone voice, you need I'm using an AI version, that whole
Yeah.
like Scarlett Johansson like AI thing, right? So I have a waiver that says, hey, I
Yeah.
want to dub if I want to, when we're filming with you, we own the footage and yeah, we could dub this. So and it's hard because you have to get it, right there because
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not getting in touch with these people so easily ever again. So
There's no real after kind of like, hey, there's no after
and
communication.
even from a brand standpoint, a lot of just another language, right? They say do you have the right to use their image, name, likeness in your video? And if they want the waiver, they want to see it signed. And so you can kill a brand partnership because you didn't get the waiver with your talent that you're interviewing or Um, but yeah, it's funny. Sometimes I feel like you're asking me like, oh, like when I go on stage, or I'm like, does anybody care about like this legal? Like John's getting everybody excited. Hey, here's how you get views. Here's how you do cool edits. Like,
Here's how you
here's
get
how
a
you read
waiver
this red
signed.
line and like,
I love it. No, I love that stuff because as someone who is so small in thinking though, but is like trying to grow as much as possible every single year, those things are things that sometimes I don't think about in terms of a waiver. So that is super helpful for me to hear that though. See, I am that type of person that would absolutely sit there and be like, yes, this is the information I want to hear.
but yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's what I mean. A lot of people were like
Yeah.
very positive, but in my head, I'm like, this is so boring. But this is what I know and have to say.
This is my area. This is
Yes, yes, this is what I do. I think also another like facet that goes into is as I've done this more, I've gotten more confident to
yeah,
negotiate and like, hey, it's me against Google. Like, it's me and a team of lawyers
yeah.
and you know, and every now and then when I have a really big partnership, I'll like pay through the roof for top tier lawyers. Very, very rarely. Or even when I do, I'll like limit it to a section because they cost $1,000 an hour which is crazy, but so it's good for creators at least to understand legalese and to a degree where you feel, I mean, I'm always going to recommend using a lawyer, but it's a cost analysis decision.
Yeah.
You can't always do it. So and even when you read even the best lawyers, it's good to understand their work and what they're doing and now all this to say like now I just get more confident like
Love it.
back of you may have a team of 50 lawyers. I know what this means, and I'm not, and that's how it goes.
I
I
love
actually have a funny story. I'm not going to say which brand it was, but there was this huge shoot, right?
Okay.
And it was like a financial company, and they said you can't work with any brands involving finance, money ever in perpetuity for one shoot, right? And they refused to take it out, and I'm like, well, okay, I'm not doing the shoot then. Like,
Yeah,
and it's scary because there's a lot of money on the line.
totally.
And you're preparing this and they're like organizing a whole shoot here. And I'm like, I'm not signing this. And it's scary, right? So we're going on and on and on. And I'm like, oh, everything's good except for this line, except for this line. and it's 2 months out, then it's a month out, then it's a week out, and the production's, 2 hours before.
Yeah.
I knew they were spending all this money. So this is just a game. It's like a psychology game, and like who's gonna cave first?
I
And usually
love
it's
it.
not me. Usually it's not me. But half of it is knowing the stuff. The other half is like how confident are you?
Yep,
Who's gonna but ultimately, like I'm trying to be fair. I want brands to be happy. I just don't want to get screwed over in the process.
totally.
And they're just trying to do the right thing too. They just have teams that are trying to protect them. They're just trying to get the most they can because that's their job. And
I love it. And I love the confidence you have to just be like, nope, nope,
yeah.
this is not how this is going down. I absolutely love it because that's what you need to face these companies that view themselves as these big whales and big people who
Yeah.
control so much.
Yeah, and talking about this role too and finances and all this stuff, I think it's such an asset to like not everyone has to be married. That's like obviously, but just like I'm keeping between the legal fees, a lot of creators will struggle, they'll hire lawyers for about they don't want to pay unlimited hourly billing, right? So they'll do 5% on legal fees for a deal, and then they'll do 20% to the agency, right?
Yeah,
And that's 20% of your revenue top line, um, before all your expenses are taken out. So that's huge. So I think this like, I don't know, equity partner, maybe early on if you can,
yeah,
is a good strategy if you're because today creators are not just creators, right? You're building a lot of creators are media businesses.
yeah,
And as you grow, this role is important and it's kind of it could be a better setup.
yeah,
Just this like owning 20% instead of just like per
yeah.
deal. I don't know. I mean, something works for everyone, but I definitely see the like works well.
I do want to just pick your mind and get some pieces of advice. You know, you jumped into this kind of unknowingly yourself, but like, what are
Yeah.
some important lessons or pieces of advice that you would pass on to somebody who is, aspiring to still be in this creator world, be in a position like you are as COO?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just very, I think just operational skills are really, really valuable. And I think there's a lot of creators and there's not a lot of operators.
Okay.
I mean, in the world there are a lot
No,
of
I got
operators, but
that
they're
makes total
not, they're
sense.
not like I need people, I think people in like operations or like
Yeah,
startups can really be applied to the creator world. And I don't see a lot, or they're not transferring.
yeah,
And you see all these issues, like all these, or like like this is another crazy thing. I just CoffeeZilla, right?
yeah,
He's getting sued by Logan Paul, right?
yeah.
His insurance doesn't cover defamation, and his whole thing is fraud. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Just the fact that and like for all creators, it's good to have defamation coverage, but like him especially, given his kind of content. I don't know where I'm going with this exactly, but just that, all these things are super, super important. And there's a lot of people with these skills, and I think they should be brought into the
Yeah.
creator world. And for creators themselves, just realizing, I don't think there's brain space. So I think if you kind of have to wear many hats and do it all when you're starting out for sure. And it's good to be educated as you possibly can. But ultimately
Yeah.
this role's needed. That's all I can.
Yes. I do have to ask
Yeah.
now, one of the hats you do use is, you are wife of John. How do you to manage that working
Yeah.
relationship as well as like, honey, we have to leave that at the door kind of situation? How do you guys manage that?
There's no leaving. I mean, I think we have no boundaries and no balance. So I'm not saying I mean, I don't know what the right answer is here because we work all the time. But what works really well is we have different skill sets, right? And different areas of domain, right? So he makes me watch footage all the time now. Like, oh my God, we were supposed to have like, I think it was a Mother's Day weekend or something. I don't even know what it was. And we just worked the entire time, like all day, all night. I was so annoyed. I was like, it's gonna kill him. No, but it had to be done. Um, but what works is like, if there's an operational decision, okay, we'll discuss it. This is my decision. That's it. Conversation over. I'm informing you. I'm like engaging you so you're aware, but this is my domain and like goodbye. And the same thing creatively, right? Like like yeah, I'm getting a better creative eye and like in terms of thumbnails or giving him suggestions, but like I'm not. That's his way to veto whatever he wants.
Yes.
So we don't fight that. The biggest like stressor is just like time and like how this is consuming our entire life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it seems it could be, I mean, right now I still don't know if I feel that it's worth it, even though we are succeeding.
Yeah.
Like every other week, I'm just like, oh my God, why are we doing this? But and
Yeah.
yeah, and it's working, and I still say that because it's crazy. Also, he's running, I have a 1-year-old. And
Yes.
so he's running all over the country, like all over the world, like
Yeah.
speaking and filming. And I'm like, and I have no family here. And so I'm like, it's just,
It's
it's
hard.
like, it's hard. Like I work I work like 9 to 6 with the nannies here. Then
Yes.
I take care of my daughter from 6 to 10. Then I work from 10 to like 2. And then I work all day Sunday. And it's just like, and he's not here and he's just gone like half the time. So, I mean, it's hard. I'm just like, what the hell? Like, what did I sign up for? But what
Yeah.
motivates me is I don't like, I'm like, okay, if I don't do this, we're gonna be broke. So I need to do
Yeah.
this job.
Yep.
So no, but it's great. And I think over like, as I make the operational process stronger and stronger, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm really motivated that's gonna get easier. And it's really exciting just to see like the difference between now and last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've doubled like in everything, which is
Amanda, my last
oh,
question for you is just what inspires you?
to do this. I believe in John, and it's amazing to even though the work is double compared to like a job, or it's a lot more consuming. It's so much more rewarding because it's something you built from nothing.
Yeah.
It's like a baby that you built, and it's
Yes.
incredible just to see it all pay off and be recognized and get on all these stages, and connect with people. And
Absolutely.
doing this, I've like, because we moved to LA and we're not from LA, and I've met some of the smartest, coolest women like in this industry. And so all the rewards of doing this is
Yeah.
um yeah, it's really amazing. And in terms
Love
of
it.
just like what inspires me in general, I love recognizing people who don't get recognized,
It's nice.
who are just like um deserve, yeah, just
Yeah.
that deserve to be more recognized. And I just people who keep their heads down and do this kind of work. And um
I love that you call that out because I think it's something that needs to be done more. I think we see some of the big names get shouted a lot, but you're like, what are the people that behind the scenes as well
yeah.
that are helping and making these big strides like you are? Like we don't see you in the production set or doing the interviews, but my God, are you helping
Yeah,
do something incredible year after year?
yeah, thank you. You're such a great interviewer. This is so fun.
Thank you.
It
I
makes such a difference. Like, I've done a couple podcasts now, and maybe because like I love connecting with women more because I feel like, we can be friends. But sometimes when it's more just like, I don't know,
yeah,
formal,
yeah.
yeah, like you have a really like warm personality. It's
I
really
appreciate
fun.
it. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. It's been one of those things where when I first started, I'm like, I can't even go back and listen to my first few podcasts because I'm like, this is painful for even myself to listen to.
I
Uh,
know, I know.
so it's been a goal of mine every year. I'm like, how do we get just a teensy bit better in every
Even like, yeah, like John's first interviews, and he came from a background like always interested in film and videography, and he worked at YouTube. And his first couple of videos, I'm like, I can't watch this. I can't. And it's not even him because he was always a really good interviewer because
yeah,
he's been interviewing kind of like you for years, just more on the side. But the production quality, like I've become such a quality snob, which is good, in this like
yeah.
totally understand. It's like, oh my God, this is so bad.
Like this is painful, but I'm like the questions are great and everything, but you can tell I'm so nervous when I'm asking this. And I'm still nervous to this day to do every single episode, but I'm like it's not like affecting me to the point where I'm like just sounds so weird when I'm asking a question. It's odd. I'm like, please just don't make me. I'm like, I'd rather do anything else than listen to myself sometimes.
You keep getting better, and yeah, that's why I love to do this. I
Yeah.
think you get better every time.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Amanda, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for walking me through your very important role and everything you're doing for Youshaei Studios. I so appreciate it.
thanks for the time.
I will have all of Amanda's socials linked down below so you guys can give her a follow. Go check out Youshaei Studios. But as always, I will see you guys back here next time. Bye, y'all.